Welcome to season 7. We have had 75 episodes together for the last year and a half. We have been journeying through the support you need to be able to get clarity on whether or not you need to stay or go, to figure out who the heck you are once you no longer have that title of wife, and to learn how to truly thrive in your new normal. To kick off season 7, I am highlighting some of our top episodes, key takeaways, and people I want to make sure you don't miss. So let's get started. Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Welcome to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica, and I am honored to have journeyed through 7 seasons with you. This is the kickoff of our 7th season. We started in June of 23. We have been together for a little over a year, and we have helped thousands of women feel heard, feel supported, and feel like they're not alone. I know for myself that when that night happened where my then husband came home from the bar and said, "I love you, but I'm not in love with you," it catapulted me into a place that I had never been before. I didn't have any friends who had been there before. I had no idea how to get through it. And I knew that because our story had infidelity, it really wasn't something I could tell a lot of people about. I had never felt so completely alone and scared in my life. I wanted more than anything to save my marriage. I wanted more than anything to put this family back together. And a large part of that was because I was afraid of what moving on meant. I was afraid that if I moved on at 35, that I would never be able to have the life that I wanted. I didn't understand how I could restart, with a small child at home. How was I going to continue on with the things that I thought were really what made a happy life? And while the 2 years in my divorce were some of the hardest years, they also brought about some of the greatest awakenings. So for those of you who are sitting in that place of, do I stay or do I go? Know that I see you. Know that every divorced woman who has been on the show to share her story has sat in the same place that you feel stuck in right now. Know that the other women who are listening that are in phase 2 of divorce, where they're trying to figure out who they are now that they've gotten divorced, are rooting for you. We have all been there, and we have all been on the crazy feels. When I sitting down to think about what the name of this podcast was going to be, it wasn't going to be the Crazy Ex-Wives Club to start with. It actually was really focused on healing modalities, that there were so many more things out there than talk therapy that really helped me finally move forward. But like all good inspired thoughts, it popped into my mind. The logo came together. I couldn't quite let it go because we all are a little crazy when our emotions have the best of us. We all are at the mercy of what that deep pain and heartbreak drives us to do. And until we learn how to heal those places that broke in our marriage, until we learn how to heal the places that we betrayed our own needs, until we learn how to forgive, not only our ex, not only maybe the family who is not supportive, but forgive ourselves for sitting in a place that we knew wasn't working longer than we thought. Those crazy emotions still run the show. So I wanted to make sure today, a little quick short episode for you as we are sitting very close to the end of the holiday season. Next week is Christmas, if that's what you celebrate. A week after is New Year's, and we start 2025. And so for all of the new listeners that we have picked up over this last year, I wanted to make sure that you really knew some of the top episodes the key stories and conversations that we've had so that if you're looking for a little something extra to binge over the holiday, whether you've got your kids or don't, it's a little extra just to pour back into your cup so that you are aware of all of the support and all of the women cheering for you to pick up the pieces and to put things back together. Okay, the first thing that I want to call out for new listeners is seasons 1, 2, and 3 create a very specific playlist to help you through the 3 phases of divorce. Season 1 is heavily focused on helping you decide whether you should stay or go. We start with the first episode where we kick off the 3 phases of divorce. You learn how I knew I was ready. You learn some of the signs that I looked for, some of the reasons that I knew that it was no longer fixable. We talk about understanding who you are. I have a little astrology sprinkled in there. We've got some great stories from the other side talking about the very beginning phases of really trying to decide, is this what I need to do next? Now, season two focuses on defining who you are. It's all about phase 2 of the divorce process, which is who are you now that you are no longer the title of wife? And then season 3 focuses on how to thrive in your new normal. Co-parenting, we've got a step parent expert on. We talk about navigating conflict. We talk about dating again, how to define who you are in dating. We have a matchmaker on to help you figure out what you want to define and what you're looking for. So seasons 1, 2, and 3, I curated them as a playlist to listen to from start to finish, to be guided through each of those phases. Then starting in season 4, we started to integrate all of those learnings. We have therapists, we have Reiki healers, we have stories from the other side. So then we're moving through all 3 phases all the time. But I really wanted to create 3 very specific playlists, season 1, season 2, season 3, that literally guide you through the journey. So if you are new or if you've been jumping around, I highly recommend you go back to the beginning and just binge those from the beginning on. Now let's talk about a handful of my favorite episodes. Season 1, episode 1. Now this is still the top streamed episode. It's called Launching into Life After Divorce. And this was the kickoff episode to the podcast. I sit down with 3 of my closest friends, each of those women who really held the light for me as I navigated a new phase of divorce. It's where we get our 3 phases quiz to figure out where you're at. I think no matter where you are, I think every woman goes through 3 phases of the divorce process. Phase 1, do I stay or do I go? This is where you don't really know what life looks like after, but you know that you are deeply unhappy. You know that you are exhausted from trying to get your partner to hear you. You know that you have tried everything, but then a good day happens and you're not really ready to call it quits and you're hopeful that things will start to turn around, or maybe he does just enough where it backs off of being on the edge and then it spirals again. We talk about phase 2, which is defining who you are. I mean, I didn't even know what I wanted to eat for dinner when I first got divorced because he had been in charge of cooking. So I just would come home and dinner would be done. And so being able to figure out, who was I? What did I love? What did I want to take forward in my life? And then phase 3 was learning how to thrive in your new normal. Divorce comes with a lot of conditions that you cannot change. There's a lot of grief that you're letting go, the dreams and the wishes for the future that will no longer be there. There's learning how to co-parent. I mean, you're trying to co-parent and have a functioning, respectful relationship with a person that you probably did not have a functioning, respectful divorce with. I think our goal is always to have a respectful divorce. But again, when those emotions drive us crazy, sometimes either side can act a little bit more out of resentment and retaliation than about moving forward. You have to figure out how to date again. If you want to date again, do you want to be married again? And then, oh my Lord, the things that come up when you do start dating, the places you thought were healed, the triggers that are still lying dormant, or the fears that are there trying to keep you small. Phase 3. Phase 3 is, again, a really beautiful place, but it also is learning to how to be happy in the complexities of what your new life is. I mean, I think most people think that they're going to get divorced and life is now going to be easier. Oh, it's so difficult dealing with my husband. It'd just be easier if he wasn't here. Rip that Band-Aid off. That is not always true, you guys. There's different money worries. There's different communication issues. There's different constraints on your time. Divorce definitely doesn't guarantee that things get easier. It just guarantees that you're about to write a new story. You get to create what it looks like. The second episode I want to highlight is helping kids weather divorce. Now, Hannah Strong is a child therapist. I've had her on twice. I absolutely adore this woman and her content. She's been on to talk about the helping kids weather divorce is focused on younger kids, understanding kind of what's going on for kids. How can you be there for them as they figure out how to move forward from divorce? The second episode, we address teens because teens are just a little bit different. Nope, I have a teen now. When I first recorded with Hannah, I had a tween and now I have a teen, and life is very different. And so learning how to help kids of all ages be able to move forward while you're healing. You've got your own healing, and how you heal is going to be a little bit different than how your kids heal. They're going to have grief too. They're going to have loss. They're going to have a reckoning of coming to terms with the way that their life is now going to look. Hannah is a fantastic expert to guide you through that process. The next top episode, narcissists, their behavior, and our addiction to the drama. I had Victoria McCooey on. She is a high conflict divorce specialist. She specializes in working with individuals who are dealing with a narcissistic ex. She has some crazy stories of people really truly being crazy. What I loved about our conversation is a lot of times we all like to label our ex as narcissistic. I mean, I know when I was getting divorced and some of the things that my ex was doing, my friends would be like, "Oh, he's such a narcissist." And I think the reality is that we all have narcissistic tendencies. It's a spectrum, right? It's not an on or an off. Sometimes we're a little bit more focused on only allowing what we need. Sometimes we're a lot of bit focused on it. And when people get hurt and when people get forced into things, they kind of puff up those narcissistic feathers per se. But Victoria took us through I think there's eight signs of a narcissist. And I found it really helpful because if we go into a conversation with our ex and we believe that they are narcissistic or that they are a narcissist, it leaves very little room for us to ever see their behaviors differently. And if we want to get a new end result, if we want the dynamic to shift, we have to be able to shift ourselves. And so I really avoid painting labels on people. I really avoid using those terms. And Victoria's conversation was super empowering to understand what are some of those red flags so that you can understand if this really is a case where you're working with a narcissist or whether there's just some narcissistic tendencies going on. And if that's the case, there are some things you can do to kind of ride out the storm until they settle down. Now, sneak peek, I just emailed Victoria about having her back on to talk about how do you work with an ex who doesn't want to work with you. So she is a wealth of knowledge. She has her own support groups and coaching programs. So if you are really struggling with somebody who is unwilling to work with you, she is a fantastic, fantastic person to lean into. All right, another top episode or a top topic that gets requested a lot is boundaries. And season 2, episode 5, mastering boundaries for your best self. We talk about breaking the cycle of overextending. I don't know about you, but as me, I can take on more, I can do more, I can give more, because if I do that, it creates a false sense of security and safety that why would they get rid of me? Look at all these things that I'm doing for them. Look at how much I help them. Look at how much I contribute and add to the relationship. That is not a healthy dynamic. So we really get into how do you break that cycle of overextending? How do you stand up for what you need? How do you move forward into what you want to build instead of continuing to replay some of those same old habits? I think a conversation everybody should listen to was season 3, episode 4, which was shifting conflict into growth with Tracy Callahan. So Tracy specializes in conflict and negotiation. And so learning about how people handle conflict. And I think the biggest key takeaway is knowing that the majority of conflict in a relationship is never actually resolved. The two people just learn how to navigate through it, not ignore it, not continue to trip over it, not use it as a weapon against the other person, but how do you find a place of neutrality with your partner when conflict is in the middle? Super valuable, especially if you're in the middle of conflict, to be able to take a step back, to step out of all the intensity, all the emotions that are swirling, and to find a nice neutral grounded place. Season 4, episode 6, Unraveling Hormonal Health and Stress with Dr. Laura DeCessaris. I loved this episode because for me, my physical symptoms were taking over. The stress, the emotional toil, my body had been screaming for help for a really long time. And Dr. Laura comes on to talk about things we can do at home. Simple things like you really need to mindfully chew your food like 30 times to stimulate the digestive tract, to get everything moving, to help it break down, and to become more mindful around what we're eating. We talk about functional medicine, we talk about hormone health, we talk about stress management. Super, super valuable lesson. The other thing that I want to highlight is so often, about 4 times a season, I have episodes called Stories from the Other Side. And Stories from the Other Side are just real life women who have made it through and wanted to share their story of what they did and how they got through. Because every single one of them sat in the same place of not knowing what comes next and not knowing how to get through it. Some had to figure out how to create financial freedom. Some had to figure out where they were going to live. Some had to figure out how the heck they were going to have enough money to hire a lawyer. And through each of these stories, they share with you their own personal transformation. They share where they struggled, they share how they overcame it, and they share their transformation to help you feel not so alone, to know that no matter how hopeless it feels, it is one day and one small step at a time. You guys, I'd love to hear from you on what your favorite episode is over the last 75 episodes. So make sure if you're listening on Spotify, to go to the comments. Let us know what your favorite episode was. Let us know what your key takeaway was. If you haven't had a chance, I can ask for a few requests this holiday season. The gift I'm asking for, please follow the podcast. My goal is to get the followers of the podcast to be closer to the number of Instagram and Facebook followers that we have. We've got a lot of people following, a lot of people asking for help. Let's move them over to subscribing to the podcast. So make sure you follow the podcast. If you have not left a rating and review on the podcast yet, please drop a little 5-star, leave a comment. If I think you can leave comments on Apple, please leave your thoughts. You guys, those ratings and reviews. So between the follows, the ratings, and the reviews, it's what helps the podcast climb the charts to reach more people, to be able to help other women. My other ask is that you think about somebody in your life who would also benefit from listening to the show. Forward them your favorite episode, send it over, let them know why you think it'd be valuable. To be honest, you don't have to be divorced to be able to get a lot out of this podcast. Most of my married friends, all my single friends, they're all listening. Even my guy friends are like, I really didn't expect this to give me something. But each episode, I find that there is that aha, there is that takeaway. And that's my goal. My goal is to help you see something different. If at the end of every episode, the light bulb has gone off, that there was an aha, there was a, I could look at this differently, then we're winning, you guys. We are creating the change we need in our lives to truly become unconditional in our happiness. I vowed after my divorce to never let my happiness be so reliant on somebody else. We're human. We're flawed. We can never be perfect for somebody else. And when we put all of that hope and all of that pressure on one person, it's kind of doomed to fail. The reality is that you are the only person who can choose to be happy, to shift your thoughts, to do something differently. And yes, divorce gets messy. And yes, other people have opinions and thoughts and behaviors that can trigger you. But when you learn how to shift that mindset, how to take the aha, how to look for the inspired thought, which leads you to an inspired action, I promise you, your whole world can change. You guys take some time this last week before the holiday hits next week to enjoy what you do have. Even if it's only 5% of your entire day, find something that brings you joy. Mine started with the warm water in the shower every morning. I would revel in how good it felt to be underneath the water. Then I started building a pretty serious coffee cup collection. I wanted cups that when I looked at them, they made me smile. They made my heart happy. They could be goofy. They could be silly. They could be a memory of somewhere I've been. And I got real specific around what was in that coffee cup. Not just coffee to fuel my energy, but was it something that tasted good? Was it something that I craved? Look around you. I started to find things that just made me smile, right? A certain color of blue. A blue sky and white clouds, the way that the trees shimmer when the wind blows. right now, I'm waiting for snow. When the snow hits, the first snowfall is, oh, it's so beautiful. Even though it's a real pain in the butt to drive in, it is so beautiful to watch. Find those micro moments of joy. Find more micro moments of joy every day. And as you build one micro moment into 2, into 3, into 10, into 20, this is how you transform your life into a life that you love. You learn how to transition from contrast, I didn't like that, into flow. Oh, I know how to weave and move around this. And you'll continue to do that. Contrast, which brings you clarity in how you want to move forward. Contrast, I don't like this. Clarity on what I want to do next. You'll continue to move in and out and rebuild your life. You guys, I wish you the most success in this upcoming year. I cannot wait to see how we work through this year together. I do want to give one final shout out for the holiday heart to heart. It is never too late. If you are now deep in the throes of the holiday, if everything is kind of crashing down around you as Christmas is 1 week away, as you are worried about how you are going to get through this next week, check out the holiday heart to heart. I've got a couple podcast episodes on there to guide you through of what to be aware of. I have a killer episode, powerful episode on learning how to climb the emotional ladder. How do you climb out of the funk? How do you shift your energy and your emotions and your feelings? So if you're feeling sad and angry and grieving the loss of what was, how do you stop that and move back into being content, to being excited or happy? And then for those moments when it hits, because sometimes it's going to hit and it's going to be too big to stop, and that is a-okay. There's a guided EFT meditation in there for you specifically to hold you up, to help you breathe, and to tap you through all the feels so that you can get your feet underneath you again, so that you can find your strength to be able to move forward again. The link is in the show notes. The link is also under services on the crazyexwivesclub.com. You guys, it runs just like a podcast. You're going to hit play on the app on your phone. It's going to take you through it and gives you a 40-page journal to help you learn how to process out all the feels. Until next week, enjoy this week. Slow down, look around. Find those micro moments of joy. We'll be back with another episode next week. I actually am really feeling called to just take you through a longer guided meditation, a little Christmas gift just for you. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.